Hi guys! Today I'm going to cover a topic that never quite seems to make sense no matter how often it's covered. I'm talking, of course, about color theory. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time rambling about the science involved for two reasons. One, the science behind why we see things the way we do is fascinating, and okay, mainly just that one reason, but I'll put a little warning and a time you can skip to if you don't want to hear the occasional science lesson. So let's get started. Color wheels. There are 3 of them I'm going to cover here. You already know this one. This is the traditional color wheel. Your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue because those are the only traditional pigments that can't be mixed from other pigments. You don't generally use this one in digital art, so I won't be talking about it very much. The 2 main color wheels that we use in digital art are the RGB wheel and the CMYK wheel. RGB stands for red, green, blue, and CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. Key stands for black. I promise it makes sense. The difference between the two is a little complicated, but the quick version is that RGB is based on how the human eye perceives light, and CMYK is based on the limitations of the printing process. RGB has more colors than CMYK. Skip to this point in the video if you want to skip the science class. Alright, science time. Light as we know it is a tiny sliver of radiation on the electromagnetic spectrum. Red has the longest wavelength our eyes can detect, and violet has the shortest wavelength our eyes can detect. Our eyes have 2 main classifications of photoreceptors. These are rods, which detect how much light is visible, and cones, which tell us what color that light is. The average human eye has 3 types of cones, which detect red, green, and blue light. Every color we can see is a mixture of these 3 colors. Naturally, we designed our light-emitting monitors to cater to our biological perception of light. So, your monitor displays everything using arrays of red, green, and blue light in order to trick your eyes into thinking they're really seeing stuff on the display. As a side note that I couldn't figure out where to put it, mantis shrimp have up to 16 color receptors in their eyes and drastically outclass every other known animal on this planet with their incredible shrimp vision. This is why RGB is the default setting for most programs, and why all human artists have to live with the fact that their color spotting potential is forever outranked by seafood. CMYK, however, stems from the technical limitations of ink and printing and doesn't quite have the full range of color as RGB. RGB monitors, however, can support the full CMYK spectrum. If you're making your art to print, you'll do your best work in CMYK. Since I don't do much printing, I'll be working in RGB. Now that that's settled, let's get the rest of the boring key terms out of the way. Hue refers to color in its basic form. This is what you refer to when you say red, blue, violet, and so forth. Saturation refers to how much color is in your color. We'll come back to this. Value refers to how dark or light your color is. Oddly enough, not every pure hue reads as the same value, which brings us to tints, tones, and shades. Color plus white equals tint. As it gets lighter, it gets less saturated. Color plus gray equals tone. The more gray you put in it, the less saturated it gets. Color plus black equals shade. This is the only one that doesn't inherently desaturate your color, at least when working digitally. Mix them all together and you can make good use of a hue's variations. Now, as far as I'm concerned, going over color schemes in absolute terms makes applying color theory more difficult. Plus, it doesn't really matter what you do, there's a word for it, and nobody really cares unless they're trying to be pretentious. But I have a nagging feeling that if I leave out color schemes, someone's gonna rip me a new one in the comments. So here it goes. Monochromatic. Everything is a tint, tone, or shade of the same hue. Complementary. Pick 2 colors that are opposites on the color wheel. Everything is a tint, tone, or shade of those 2. Use mostly one and save the others for details, or it might feel too loud and cluttered. Analogous. However the heck it's pronounced. Pick 2 to 4 colors that are all squished against each other on the color wheel. Everything is a tint, tone, or shade of these colors. This generally makes a pretty soothing scene because you see analogous colors a lot in nature. Triadic! Not to be confused with Triassic, though a Triassic color scheme sounds pretty cool. Too bad you can't color with dinosaurs. Anyway, pick 3 colors that are equidistant from each other on the color wheel, like your primary colors or your secondary colors. Everything, then, is a tint, tone, or shade of those 3 colors. Scenes with this color scheme generally feel playful, so you see them a lot in children's cartoons. Now, on to the good stuff. Applied color theory. Also known as everything you know is wrong, your eyes are lying to you, nothing is black or white, and very rarely is that color what you think it is. If you're scared, welcome to the club. Let's break this down. So there are 2 main terms we'll be dealing with. 1. Relative color is the color your brain tells you you're seeing. This color often depends on the context and can seem much lighter or darker than it actually is. 2 is absolute color. This is the color that's actually there. It's what your color picker tells you the color is. Absolute color doesn't care what you think it looks like, it just is. Just go with it. This will get easier as time goes on. Now, there is a 3rd term I'll be using, but it's not as important. And this term is local color. This is the color an object is, but this can also be a bit of a guessing game. For example, this copy and pasted orange ball has the same local color no matter where it is, but the absolute colors are different in the highlights and shadows, and the relative colors change with the backdrop. If you're a bit confused, that's okay. Science lesson coming up. Skip to this part of the video to bypass the lesson if you're not interested. The reason why this gets so confusing has less to do with the colors themselves and more to do with how our primitive, meaty brains process information. If your piece is supposed to look like a thing, then it is, first and foremost, an optical illusion. You're not just putting lines and colors on a page, but are trying to convince the viewer that they're seeing something which isn't really there. Only instead of using sleight of hand to create the illusion like a cool person, you're using your understanding of how we perceive reality on a fundamental level. For example, you can recognize your favorite coffee mug no matter what light it's under, because your brain accounts for the light and corrects your perception of the mug's color. It's very useful because, objectively, your mug's color looks different at dawn than at noon, dusk, or midnight. So, your brain corrects your eyes so that you can recognize things, and you don't usually realize when it's happening. Taking the time to step back and realize when and how it's happening makes figuring out absolute and relative colors a bit easier. But until you're a master of setting aside thousands of years of human beings processing light in this very specific way, this quirk of perception makes it difficult to reconcile relative color, that's what it looks like in context, and local color, that's what it looks like out of context and what your brain corrects to, with absolute color, the color it actually is no matter what your brain says. I like to summarize this as sometimes colors look like themselves, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they can look like entirely different colors. The key is learning how not to trust yourself until you can trust yourself. Sound fun? Or Orwellian? I'm pretty sure the party's gaslighting tactics from 1984 had to have been at least a little inspired by color theory. So, now that I've colored how we'll be applying color theory and why it works the way it does, let's get into it by actually applying color theory. I've prepared a drawing that I've copied 6 times to demonstrate 2 coloring methods and how the colors respond in the context of other colors. The first method I'm going to show you is what I see pretty much everyone using. You pick out your local colors, do the shading and lighting, and throw an overlay or 2 on top of it all to unify the overall look. This is a good way to get used to the relationship between certain colors, and I tried to pick colors that would change a lot underneath shading and overlays. Pro tip: Whatever color you want for your local color, try desaturating it just a little more than what you think is necessary. That's what I did with the sweater, skin, and eyes on this character. So, to really show off the difference lighting can make, I went quite saturated on the lighting and shading in each different color. Notice how different the colors of the outfit look with and without the lighting and shading. Notice how each set of colors interacts in each version. This technique is really good to use if you're not sure what color you want your lighting to be or how the different colors of lighting will affect your local colors. It produces good results even if they look a bit off when rushed. The other technique is to go right in with the absolute colors. This is a massive time saver when you actually know what you want to do and how the desired lighting will affect your local colors. Here though, I'm mostly color picking from the ones I just did. If your colors still don't feel right, you can always go back over them or add an overlay. Practicing with absolute colors is a great way to get used to seeing what's really there. A good thing to keep in mind is that colors that are contrary to the rest of your color scheme will generally be desaturated and very close to gray compared to the colors that are closer to your color scheme. Notice how the sweater in this one still reads as pink, even though looking at it you can see it's actually really not. That theme generally carries over no matter what you're doing. So, as a general rule of thumb, if it doesn't look right, play with the saturation a little bit and see what happens. Sometimes it's too sometimes it's too saturated, sometimes it's not saturated enough. You never know, and it's a good exercise. This video ran a lot longer than I originally planned. So at this point I am winging the voiceover in case you can't tell. I have saved this image, the line art from this image file, and put it on Drive so that if you guys want, you guys can use this line art as a coloring exercise. If you do use it as a coloring exercise, please tag me. I would love to see your work. I will do my best to offer useful critique if I can, and if I can't offer useful critique, I would like to gush over it, like the crazed fangirl that I can be. So, yeah, I hope this video is helpful, and I wish you good luck in your coloring. Remember to like, share, favorite, and subscribe, and all the other information you need can be found in the description. Have a great day, and thank you for watching. Bye!